And welcome again to our reading of William J., his devotion. And today he is looking at the book of Daniel, chapter 13, verse 12, where the Bible says, "These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up." And William J. writes, "The refusal of these three young men was as difficult as it was noble. Their resolve has immortalized them. But let us observe how much they had to overcome to stick to it. They could have excused themselves from this trial by pleading authority. Here was the command of their sovereign, and good men are to be good subjects, to honor principalities and powers, to obey magistrates, and to be ready for every good work. But there is a difference between civil claims and spiritual claims. We are indeed to render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, but we must also render to God the things that are God's. If any person requires us to do what is opposed to the revealed will of God, we are prevented by an authority from him, which there can be no lie or appeal, and we ought to obey God rather than man. Thus the midwives did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, but saved the male children alive. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared God, that God made them houses. This desire to do what is right, however, has often given the conduct of God's servants an appearance of insubordination and revolt, and their enemies have not failed to seize it and turn it into their discredit. Such was said of Jesus. Jesus was not Caesar's friend and stirred up the people, and the apostles, they turned the world upside down. And without a doubt, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were condemned and vilified for what appeared to be disloyalty. They could have claimed that they were obligated to obey the king. Nebuchadnezzar was not only their sovereign, but he was their friend and benefactor. He had educated them in a princely manner and advanced them to the most honorable positions. And nothing else tries us like tenderness. The benefits they received would have been attracted and attached to their hearts, and good men are the most susceptible of grateful impressions. One of the most painful things in the world to a trusting mind is to refuse the wishes of one who has done much for him, for there was nothing in which he would be more delighted to do if he were not restrained by principle. Consider a dutiful child. He loves and honors his parents, and he should honor them. These parents are in all other respects kind and good, but they are worldly and require him to go to the decadences of life. They are not religious and forbid him to follow his convictions according to the truth of God, but instead by threatening. They weep over him and beseech him by every tender motive not to break their hearts, nor bring down the gray hairs with sorrow to the grave. In order to loosen from such embraces and entreaties and do what may even appear to be disrespectful, he must remember in that moment that he who loves father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And much of this these young men would feel at the thought of the favors which had been heaped upon them. They could also excuse themselves by noting that everyone else complies. Everyone else obeys, and why should they stand alone and appear to be better than anyone else? How often is this objection thrown out? Being different for its own sake displays a small and vain mind. Vain because it seeks notice, and little because it can attain it in no better way. In things harmless and indifferent, we may lawfully conform to the usages of the day and the place in which we live. But where the truth and duty and conscience are concerned, we must be steadfast and immovable, though deserted, opposed, and ridiculed by all. Show the purity of our motives and the dignity of our principles. And so did Joshua, Caleb, Lot, and Noah. And all Christians are required to not be conformed to the world. Jesus died to redeem and purify to himself a peculiar people, and peculiar they must be, while everyone else does evil. Well, said these sufferers, we must not, we will not. whatever be the consequences. And finally, they could have excused their obedience to God by pleading the dreadfulness of the penalty. We are often ready to justify or excuse our conduct by the pressure of circumstances, and to claim that the trial is just too great for our virtue. And what is the trial? What are our difficulties and perils in the path of duty? If we follow such a course, shall we be bound to the stake, or thrown into a lion's den, or a fiery furnace? No. Shall we then be deprived of our freedom, confined in a prison, stripped of our property, reduced to the life of a beggar? No. Blessed be the laws of the land that we live in. Behold our jeopardizes and sacrifices. We may lose a little of our profit by not selling or working on the Sabbath. We may have less to hoard by giving money to the needy. If we follow our convictions, we may lose the smile of a friend or incur the sneer of a fool. By redeeming our time, we may even be compelled to leave the bed of laziness a little earlier in the morning. These are our tribulations because of the word. These are the martyrs of our day. You who say you are a Christian, who can exercise no self-denial nor take up a cross, look at these 3 young men, what they had to lose, what to suffer, a fiery furnace before their eyes into which they were to be instantly thrown. Much to think about. Thanks for listening. Hope to see you next time.